Late-breaking news tonight out of Texas. A grand jury in Austin, Texas tonight has indicted Texas Republican Governor Rick Perry. He's charged with 2 felony counts of abuse of power. The technical charges are abuse of official capacity and also coercion of a public servant. If convicted of these felonies, Governor Perry faces a maximum prison term of 10 years for the coercion charge and a range of 5 years to 99 years for the other felony charge. Now, these charges center on Rick Perry's public efforts to remove from office a Democratic elected state official in Texas. That Democrat is named Rosemary Lehmberg. You see her on the right side of your screen there. She's the district attorney for Travis County, Texas. That's where the state capital of Austin is located. And of course, Texas is a red state, but Austin and Travis County, that's a blue dot in the middle of red state Texas. Those places lean Democratic, both the county and Austin itself. And that actually ends up being potentially a really important part of this story. Because when you are the district attorney of Travis County, as Rosemary Lehmberg is, you're not just the DA for that one county. Travis County is where the state capital is. And the DA for Travis County, therefore, also is responsible for the behavior of government officials in the state capitol. The Travis County DA's office includes the state's Public Integrity Unit, which investigates ethics allegations against Texas government officials. So as Travis County DA, Rosemary Lehmberg's job, in addition to being the district attorney like they have in every other county, in addition to that, her job is also to investigate all ethics complaints against Texas state officials. Remember, she's a Democrat. But last year, Rosemary Lehmberg herself got into some personal trouble with the law. She was driving through Austin on a Friday night when a fellow motorist called police to report that somebody was driving erratically. Eventually, police tracked Rosemary Lehmberg down. She was parked in a church parking lot. She failed a field sobriety test. She had an open bottle of vodka in the car with her. She refused to take a breathalyzer test, and she ultimately was arrested that night on DUI charges. It was a first offense. Rosemary Lehmberg spent the night in jail that night, and it did not go well. She was videotaped kicking her cell door, shouting at the officers on duty that night. She eventually was put into a restraint chair at the jail. After that incident, Governor Rick Perry was among those who called on Rosemary Lehmberg to resign her job, to resign her office as Travis County District Attorney. But Rosemary Lehmberg refused to step down. She served about 20 days in jail, which is a long sentence for a first offense DUI, but she served her time, she apologized, and she stayed in office. That apparently was not good enough for Governor Rick Perry, and this is where we take the turn toward tonight's felony indictment of Governor Perry. Last summer, the Austin American-Statesman newspaper reported that Texas state officials were warning Rosemary Lehmberg that if she did not resign as DA, Governor Perry was going to strip the Public Integrity Unit of its funding. He was going to veto funding for that unit in her office unless Ms. Lehmberg stepped down. And the reaction in Texas was that, okay, yeah, some of this is about Rosemary Lehmberg drunk driving thing, right? But some of it felt more like some familiar politics. Texas is a red state, but that Public Integrity Office for all state officials is in the office of a district attorney elected by a Democratic county. And Texas Republicans have long hated that. They have tried many times in the past to defund that office, to get this Public Integrity Office with this Democratic DA off their back. Texas Republicans never succeeded before at defunding that office. But then the DA who runs that office, well, she got herself this DUI. Opportunity strikes. And so Rick Perry made his demand that she resign. It should be noted that if she had resigned, Rick Perry would have been allowed to appoint her replacement. If she didn't resign, he said he would defund that office that Republicans had been trying to defund anyway. Well, Rosemary Lehmberg refused to step down in the face of that threat, and Rick Perry did follow through on his threat. He vetoed $7 million in funding for that office. And Rick Perry, as governor, does have the power to veto funding measures passed by the state legislature. But a group in Texas called Texans for Public Justice, they filed an ethics complaint against Governor Perry when he did that. They were accusing him of trying to coerce a public official to resign by using the threat of withholding state funds. He plainly was doing that. They just alleged that it was illegal. This past August, a Texas judge appointed a special prosecutor to look into those charges against Governor Perry to see if his actions were illegal. That special prosecutor impaneled a grand jury in Austin. That grand jury met with Rick Perry's chief of staff and his legislative director and his general counsel. The grand jury has met repeatedly over the course of the last few months. And then tonight, surprise, they handed down a felony indictment, a 2-count felony indictment against Governor Rick Perry of Texas. 2 felony counts that accuse Governor Perry of abusing his powers as governor of Texas. Just a short time ago tonight, this soft-spoken special prosecutor in this case announced the indictment to the public. Watch.
The grand jury today returned a 2-count indictment against James Richard Rick Perry. Count 1 of the indictment charges him with abuse of official capacity, a first-degree felony, and count 2 of the indictment charges him with coercion of a public servant, a third-degree felony.
Where specifically does this go from here? What's the process? What's the timetable?
Next week, we're going to set up a time for Governor Perry to come before court to be arraigned and given notice of his constitutional rights, and given notice of the charges against him and the statutory penalties that he's facing. That date has not been set yet. It'll be set probably Monday sometime.
Rick Perry has been Texas governor since the year 2000. He was elevated from lieutenant governor when George W. Bush was first elected president, and Rick Perry has held the office of governor ever since. He's been governor for 14 straight years. But Governor Perry is due to leave office this upcoming January, whereupon he had been widely expected to run for president. Even though he is still Texas governor, Rick Perry has more frequently been in the news in Iowa these days than he has been in his home state. But for context here, consider this. When Virginia Republican Governor Bob McDonnell, when he was charged with his felonies, when he was charged with 14 felony counts of corruption earlier this year, that was less of a surprise than these Rick Perry indictments were. It was more clear that the McDonnell indictment was coming. But in the case of Governor Bob McDonnell, prosecutors actually decided to wait until Bob McDonnell was out of office before they charged him. Yes, they charged him less than 2 weeks after he left office as governor, but still, the fact that they waited until he was no longer governor did spare the state of Virginia the sort of incremental dignity of having a former governor indicted on felonies instead of the man currently in charge. It also spared Virginia the humiliation of having to decide if it would be okay to keep their governor in his job while he was under felony indictment, or if they would have to force him out. They didn't have to make that decision. They didn't have to worry about that in Virginia because prosecutors waited to indict Bob McDonnell until he was just out of office. Didn't go down that way in Texas, though. Today, in Rick Perry's case, prosecutors decided to not spare Texas that same humiliation. Rick Perry is still the serving governor of the state of Texas. And so what happens now? The Texas Democratic Party has already released a statement calling for Governor Perry to step down, to resign as Texas governor because of these felony charges today. Late tonight, Governor Perry's office released a statement about the indictment. The veto in question, it says, was made in accordance with the veto authority afforded to every governor under the Texas Constitution. We will continue to aggressively defend the governor's lawful and constitutional action, and we believe we will ultimately prevail. Of course, it remains to be seen how likely Governor Rick Perry is to be convicted of these 2 felony charges, but can he stay in office while he is under indictment and fighting this case? What does this do to the rest of Texas politics around him in the meantime? And, I don't mean to be too petty about this, but does this for sure mean we're not all going to get to experience the untrammeled joy of Rick Perry running for president again? Joining us now is Tony Plahetsky. He's an investigative reporter for the Austin American-Statesman, and he's been covering this story since day one. Mr. Plahetsky, thanks very much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you, Rachel.
So you've covered this from day one and intensively. I have to ask you if I screwed anything up in my summary there. Did I get anything wrong?
No, that was actually a really good summary of the events that really have transpired over the past year and few months, beginning with Rosemary Lehmberg's DWI arrest in April 2013, and then, of course, culminating today.
Can you tell from your reporting some sense of how solid the case is against the governor? I mean, was this indictment a foregone conclusion, or does the fact that this indictment has come down mean that prosecutors are very confident that they're going to be able to get a conviction here? How tight's this case?
You know, let me just tell you, this was a real bombshell to a lot of people in Austin's legal community. I had been talking to attorneys, prosecutors, defense attorneys here in Travis County for several weeks leading up to today's indictment, and virtually no one thought that there would be an indictment in this case.
Wow.
The only signal that there might be an indictment was an interview I actually conducted several months ago in April with Michael McCrump, the special prosecutor in this case. At that point, he did say that he is deeply concerned about the governor's actions. But beyond that, that was really the only signal that the governor might ultimately be indicted, as he was today.
So the governor's office response, and I would say broadly Texas Republicans' response to this has essentially been to try to cast it as a political prosecution, trying to criminalize normal political behavior, some sort of witch hunt against the governor. In terms of Michael McCrump, the special prosecutor here, is he seen as a partisan figure? Does he have a Democratic partisan past that's been part of the case that Republicans have made against this investigation from the beginning?
Well, of course, he would say no. He would say he has worked on both sides of the aisle. He's a former U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney. He worked under both the Bush administration. He was up to become a U.S. attorney for a district in Texas under the Barack Obama administration, but then pulled his name from the running. So he would say, you know, he has no strong political affiliations either way.
Okay. Do you think that Governor Perry is definitely going to sort of proceed business as usual, stay in office while fighting these charges, continue to essentially downplay them the way that he has thus far, even though he's now been indicted?
Well, under the law, he certainly can stay in office, and I think most people anticipate that he will stay in office and continue doing his job as governor.
In terms of the landscape of Texas politics around him, but also the possibility of him running for president again, he seemed, he spent so much time in Iowa. That alone makes him seem like he definitely wants to run again. Do you have any sense of what this is going to do to the Texas governor's race to succeed him, Texas politics more broadly around him, or the possibility of him running for president?
You know, I think most Republicans will tell you, listen, this is a trumped-up charge against a governor of the state of Texas, you know, and that moving forward, he will continue to fight these charges and ultimately be acquitted. That is at least his position. His position is, listen, yes, I vetoed the money, but I used my constitutional right as governor of the state of Texas to do so. And that is his position. But then you have others, including apparently this grand jury, who say, wait, not so fast. Yes, you may have constitutional veto authority, but you can attach a threat to that veto authority.
Exactly. Yeah, you may have the constitutional right to vote, for example. You don't have the constitutional right to sell your vote. Your action itself is not necessarily independently evaluated from its motives. In a case like this, at least that's the allegations. This is a fascinating story. Thanks for helping us understand it, Tony. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Good to see you.
Thank you. You too. Tony Plahetsky is an investigative reporter for the Austin American-Statesman, and the Austin American-Statesman has done so much of the important work in terms of reporting this out for the nation, and Tony specifically. It's a big deal. Again, the breaking news tonight that Texas Governor Rick Perry has been indicted by an Austin grand jury. It's 2 felony counts, including one that carries a potential prison term of up to 99 years in prison. We'll keep you posted as we learn more. Stay with us.